Two tow trucks rolled up before sunrise. Their engines echoed through the neighborhood as three HOA board members stood outside my garage with clipboards and flashlights, whispering like they were planning a raid. Then, one of them said it out loud, "Break the lock and tow it out." That's when I froze. They weren't joking. They were actually trying to take my father's old truck from inside my own garage. And the crazy part? They thought the law was on their side, until blue lights pulled up behind them. So before we begin, drop your country or city name in the comments. I'd love to see how far this message travels. And if you believe in justice over power, hit that like button and subscribe, because this channel stands for stories that speak truth to power. I've lived in this neighborhood for 6 years, quiet streets, trimmed lawns, and neighbors who wave just enough to feel polite. I don't cause trouble. I pay my dues. I keep to myself. But ever since the HOA changed leadership last spring, things haven't been the same. The new president, Carol, treats the neighborhood like her personal kingdom, and anyone who doesn't bow gets fined. My father's truck had been sitting in my garage since he passed away, a 1979 Chevy he restored with his own hands. I kept it spotless. The smell of old leather and engine oil was all I had left of him. Every Sunday, I'd start it up, let it run for a minute, not to drive it, but to feel like he was still around. Then one morning, I found a yellow HOA notice taped to my door. Vehicle in violation of community aesthetics. I laughed. The truck was inside my garage. Hidden. Not even visible from the street. I thought it was a mistake. But the next week, another notice came, this time with a fine. When I went to the HOA office to ask what this was about, Carol smiled like she'd been waiting for me. "It's still considered visible storage," she said. After that meeting with Carol, I thought maybe she'd move on to her next victim, some poor guy who painted his fence the wrong shade of beige. But I underestimated how far she'd go to prove a point. A week later, I got another letter. Final warning, non-compliant vehicle will be towed. That word, towed, hit different. My father's truck wasn't just metal and paint. It was memories. Grease on our hands. Late nights under the garage light. His voice saying, "Always build something that lasts longer than you." So I called the HOA office again. They didn't answer. I emailed, no reply. That's when I knew this wasn't miscommunication anymore. This was deliberate. 2 days later, a neighbor texted me. "Hey, man. Saw a tow truck parked down the street this morning. Everything okay?" That's when I checked my security cameras. 2 men in reflective vests were pacing near my driveway. And right behind them, Carol and her board members, snapping pictures like paparazzi. I stepped outside. Calm. Controlled. "Can I help you?" Carol held up a clipboard. "We have authority to remove the vehicle. You've ignored repeated violations. That vehicle is inside my garage." "Exactly. We need it out so it's no longer stored in a visible structure." I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was insane. "You're trespassing," I said, reaching for my phone. "You're not touching that door." Carol crossed her arms. "Then we'll call the police." I smiled. "Perfect. Let's call them together." They didn't expect that. Within 10 minutes, 2 deputies arrived, lights flashing, everyone frozen. Carol tried explaining how the HOA had jurisdiction. One deputy flipped through the so-called bylaws she handed him, then looked at me. "Sir, this is your property?" "Yes, sir." "Paid off?" "Title in my name." He nodded. Then turned to Carol. "Ma'am, this doesn't give you the right to enter or tow anything from his private garage. If you proceed, you're committing trespass." For the first time, Carol's smug confidence cracked. Her clipboard lowered. The deputies told the tow truck drivers to leave, and I watched as they drove off slowly, and 2 days after that standoff, I got a letter from the HOA's lawyer. They'd filed a civil complaint, claiming I was obstructing enforcement of community regulations. It was laughable, but serious enough that I needed to fight back properly. So I hired an attorney, and he didn't just fight, he dug. Turns out, the HOA had overstepped in more ways than one. They'd been fining people illegally, misusing maintenance funds, and threatening homeowners who questioned them. My lawyer gathered every record, every complaint, and sent a copy to the county sheriff's office and code enforcement. A week later, the sheriff called me personally. "We're doing a full investigation. Don't open your garage to anyone until this is resolved." Then came the day. The HOA called an emergency board inspection, trying one last time to flex power. Carol showed up with 2 officers she'd somehow convinced to supervise her inspection, not knowing the sheriff himself was already on his way. When the sheriff's cruiser pulled up, everything stopped. He walked straight to her, calm but firm. "Ma'am, we've received multiple complaints about your board's conduct. You're not here for an inspection, you're here for questioning." Carol froze. The look on her face, the same arrogance that once ruled the neighborhood, vanished in seconds. The sheriff turned to me. "Mr. Walker, your property's protected under state law. That truck isn't going anywhere." I nodded, stepped aside, and hit the garage remote. The door lifted slowly. A few weeks later, the investigation results came in, and let's just say, karma didn't waste any time. The county found that the HOA board had issued multiple illegal fines, misused resident funds, and violated property rights. Carol was removed from her position, along with 2 board members who'd backed her. The sheriff's report even mentioned my case specifically, attempted unlawful entry and unauthorized towing from private residents. That single line changed everything. It meant what they did wasn't just petty, it was criminal. The HOA was fined heavily. And as part of the settlement, they were required to send a written apology to every homeowner they'd harassed, including me. When I opened that envelope, I didn't even get angry. I just smiled. The letter was cold and formal, but it ended with 6 words that said it all. "We regret any distress our actions caused." I framed that letter and hung it right above my father's truck. The same truck they tried to steal, the same one they said didn't fit the neighborhood's image. Now, every time I walk into my garage, I see 2 things, the apology letter and that old Chevy shining under the light. One represents power abused, the other, pride earned. Sometimes, people ask why I didn't sell the truck after all that. But they don't understand, that truck isn't just metal. It's a reminder that you don't need a title or a board to stand up for what's right. You just need the courage to say no. That day, justice didn't roar in a courtroom or make headlines. It happened quietly, in a small garage where a man finally locked his door and took his power back. If you've ever had to stand your ground against people who thought power made them untouchable, you know exactly how this feels. Drop a automobile in the comments if you'd have done the same. And remember, every time you choose truth over fear, you become part of the justice that keeps this world balanced. The full story's on the channel, and trust me, this one proves it, real justice always finds its way home.